Yeah, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, here we go.
And here we go.
Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, and I don't know. Did anything happen this weekend? Maybe I missed something, but it felt like a pretty uneventful sports weekend. Baseball games were kind of boring. There was college football, no big games, nothing happened there. I mean, the Tennessee played great on Saturday against. Screw it. At least we didn't have the worst loss. Alabama losing to Vanderbilt was the worst loss of the weekend. My Vols lost to Arkansas. Still trying to recover over that. I'll have more takes on that come the Vol View on Friday. But we've got a loaded show. And I do mean a loaded show, okay? Going to talk about the New York Jets in about 12 to 15 minutes. Why yesterday's loss falls on the legend himself, Aaron Rodgers. Getting that in 12 minutes. Also, going to get into Brock Purdy. Listen, we have a bigger and bigger and bigger sample size about a grossly common trend among this quarterback and among this football team in the San Francisco 49ers. Also going to get into the Bengals, the Ravens, probably the game of the year. Joe Burrow was amazing. Lamar Jackson was amazing. And ultimately, the Ravens came away with the victory at the end of that one. Going to get into that, as well as the Buffalo Bills' inexcusable loss, in my estimation, to the Houston Texans. Touch on that, as well as coverage of all the other games around the National Football League in Week 5. What a weekend. Baseball playoffs are going nuts. We got games going on right now between the Tigers and Guardians. Let's go Detroit. I hate Cleveland. College football is crazy. Tennessee will be fine. Hey, the Vols will be fine. You don't have to worry about anything. I see my man Patrick Brown's in the comments. He says, happy Monday. And he says, here we go. And then see, Patrick, why you got to do this already to me, man? We're 2 minutes into the show. And he's saying Steelers Nation, let's weld. I may or may not touch on it, folks. But if you didn't watch the game last night, and I imagine a lot of folks didn't because the weather delay, Russ has a new catchphrase. Yay. So let's get into football. And let's get into my very mixed emotions. But first, we live in this is putting it mildly, a pretty divided country. That goes without saying. If we can't agree on anything at all, we don't even agree if elections are stable in America, for crying out loud. If we can't agree on that, let's agree on this, okay? Albert Einstein was a smart guy. Albert Einstein knew a thing or two about a thing or two, right? What was the commercials with that says we know a thing or two because we see a thing or two? That was Albert Einstein. He knew a thing or two. And Albert Einstein, who had many great quotes, once said, adversity introduces a man to himself. It's a great quote. It's a powerful quote. That resonates like, oh, that's a good one. Often, and what that means, at least in my estimation, is you can feel like you're a certain type of way. You can say this is who you are. You really don't know until you hit adversity. When the fit hits a shan, crap goes wrong. Who are you and what are you about? So this is what Dak Prescott had to deal with yesterday against my Pittsburgh Steelers. I had to write it down just to make sure I got it. Game is delayed an hour and a half because of a lightning storm in Pittsburgh. And by the way, a monsoon. It was raining pretty hard in Pittsburgh. Shout out to some of the Steelers fans for trying to drink their alcoholic beverage under the poncho. They were trying to make all things better, but it was not ideal. Try and keep warm. Try and make sure you're in good shape. Hour and a half weather delay rather. Dak is playing at a severe coaching disadvantage. Mike Tomlin, Mike McCarthy. I think I'm going to go Tomlin there. Maybe I'm crazy. I think I'm going to go Mike Tomlin. Okay. How about the fact that Dallas committed 11 penalties? Has not been a problem for the Cowboys in the Mike McCarthy era. A lot of games where they have double-digit penalties, and last night was no different, in particular on the offensive line. Tons of pre-snap penalties on Dallas' young offensive line. Also, in that game, O-line got worked by TJ Watt. Cam Hayward played well. Nick Herbig makes some plays. Dallas O-line didn't play that well last night, I didn't think. How about this? Mike McCarthy with these boneheaded non-challenges on a Jalen Brooks catch in the first half that should have been a first down, and then a challenge on a play that was obvious. I'm pretty sure it was the I think it was the catch on the sideline for the Steelers. I think it was that. But bad challenges and non-challenges by Mike McCarthy. Also, without Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Deron Bland for the Cowboys defense. And also, no Brandon Cooks. And what did Dak do? Oh, let's see. He threw for 350 yards and led a game-winning drive, throwing the game-winning touchdown on 4th down. Adversity introduces a man to himself. Listen. Not to spoil my Brock Purdy segment, but more things than not went Brock Purdy's way yesterday, and he still couldn't come through. Just about everything, other than what was a shockingly good running game by the Cowboys. I was actually quite impressed. Rico Dowdle, don't know if you're going to get that again, but had pretty good performance up until that fumble, which, by the way, Dak saved the Cowboys bacon by diving on the football. Otherwise, my Steelers would have won the game. Is that I've said this for 3 years on Carving It Up Live, going back to the 2021 season, and it's as true as ever. And last night, to me, is the ultimate advertisement for this statement. It is a quarterback's league. Yes, you need the coach. The coach is huge. If you got a great quarterback with subpar or bad coaching, or at times average coaching, Sean McDermott with the Bills, there might be a ceiling on how far you can go. Heck, the Dallas Cowboys, I feel like, are in that spot. McCarthy's not a bad coach, but no one's ever going to put him in the same tier as, again, the guy on the other sideline, Mike Tomlin. It's a quarterback's league. Last night, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense was awesome, y'all. Not 1, not 2, but 3 takeaways off of Dak. 2 interceptions and a strip sack with Watt and Herbig combining to make the play. By the way, Dallas, a block kick in the red zone. That didn't go their way. Almost everything went against the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of things presumably went for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're playing at least statistically going into this game, a bad rushing defense. Okay? They've got a Cowboys defense that is just decimated by injuries. I mean, there are guys that Cowboys defense line I've never heard of before. I mean, even the guy Marshawn Nealon, who was like the starter in place of Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, even he went down early in the game. Everything broke for the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, Sunday Night Football. And you couldn't come through because your quarterback's Justin Fields, and there's only so far. And I like Justin. He's been fine for us this year. I bragged on him last week, but he is still Justin Fields, and we have a big enough sample size to say he's fine. He's nothing special. Other guy in Dallas is special, and I've been saying this, I mean, really since they came to the league, but certainly the last couple of years, when the Dallas Cowboys have, for reasons I cannot comprehend, have not addressed some of their glaring needs as it relates in particular to their wide receiving core. I mean, listen, Dak throws the game-winning touchdown pass to Jalen Tolbert, who just injured his man parts of the play before. I mean, that's what Dak's working with. Okay, Rico Dowdle's having the game of his life, and then he fumbles on the one. Could have been the most disastrous inning to play to the game ever for Dallas, and Dak saved him there. Did he have his turnovers? No question about it. No one's going to excuse any of those, particularly the second interception, or rather the first interception in the red zone when he was targeting CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee and Dak kind of had a brief conversation on the sideline. Wasn't great. Pittsburgh's got a better roster. Pittsburgh's got a better coach. Pittsburgh was at home. Pittsburgh is the better running team against a beat-up Cowboys team, and Dak Prescott still did a job because that's what great quarterbacks do. That's what great quarterbacks do. Adversity introduces a man to himself. When it comes to great quarterbacks in this league, I don't judge you when things are going well. I don't judge you when, you got a perfect passer rating, but your roster is basically stacked. Or if wide receivers are running wide open, or your defense is creating a million takeaways. What are you when stuff doesn't go the way you're hoping that it goes? And when the Dallas Cowboys absolutely need Dak Prescott the most, this is why, when that game was over and I just kind of sat in my misery as a Steelers fan, of course, in the Carving It Up Bowl, and we had the graphic for it, the Carving It Up Bowl, of course, Dak Prescott comes in and just stabs me in the chest and breaks my heart as a Steelers fan. Of course he does. But after I kind of sat and thought about that game, after that game was over, I'm thinking, and folks didn't think the Cowboys should have paid him. Are you out of your freaking minds? Did you see the other organization that drafts well, that is well run, that is well coached? But they don't have that guy. Pittsburgh's going to be drafting quarter. Listen, Justin Fields not the long-term answer. Listen, he's done a good job. He's better than Kenny Pickett. Kudos to him. It's not a high bar to reach, but he's better than Kenny Pickett, who we had last year and won 10 games with him starting the majority. Russell Wilson, what's his new catchphrase? Win the 7th. Yeah, go Hawks. Let's ride. Now win the 7th. Hey, get Russ out of here. These aren't the answers. Dallas Cowboys are a disastrous organization without that man at quarterback. So even CeeDee Lamb, who's amazing. I can't speak highly enough of CeeDee Lamb. The guy pulled a disappearing act in the second half. What do you have? Like 1 catch, 2 catch? I mean, he was nowhere to be found. Against a better team, better coach, in about as bad of circumstances as Dak could have possibly imagined. Beat up offensive line, penalized offensive line, bad challenges by McCarthy, block kicks. Dak still got the job done because that's what he does. And to me, the ultimate test, I think I heard Nick Wright's the first, shout out Nick Wright, is the first guy I ever heard say this. And he said, I'm like, God, that's so true, is that the mark is of if you're playing a great, great quarterback. Like, no doubt, no question about it, great quarterback, is if no matter the situation, 2 minutes ago, they got the ball in their hands with a chance to win. How do you feel about it? And despite Pittsburgh getting 3 turnovers off of Dak Prescott, despite the fact that Dak's receiving core, aside from CeeDee Lamb, I mean, he's working with Ferguson, was pretty good last night. Ferguson made a big 3rd down catch in that last drive, and Jalen Tolbert doing what he can, and Brooks made a catch. Hunter Lipke, the fullback, is getting snaps on this team. How do I feel with Dak Prescott with the ball in his hands? And to tell you the God's honest truth, I'm not sitting there. I'm actually standing. I'm nervous as I'll get out. I'm standing there, bite my nails. God, just one play, just one player, because I know he's going to kill us if we don't make it. And by the way, and I tweeted it as soon as it happened, the play was there. Landon Roberts gets his best Troy Polamalu impression, punches the ball out from Rico Dowdle, and Dak saves the day at the end. I've said it for years, and I think last night is the prime example of it. That is a special player dragging a poorly run franchise. Dallas should not be 3-2 today. They could have easily lost to the Giants. And by the way, Giants, not a bad football team. A lot of that's their coaching. They built a solid O-line. I mean, it's the organizational structure in Dallas is a train wreck. The organizational structure of Pittsburgh is about as good as you could possibly ask for, but they don't have that guy at quarterback, and Dallas does. And that was the difference. Pittsburgh's defense, Dallas, their first 4 red zone trips, scored 3 points. Now, some of that was Dak's doing. Some of that was Dak's doing. But some of it was block kick, pressure by TJ Watt. The Steelers were great where we tend to see them be great. The number 1 defense in the league. And it didn't matter against that guy. Because that's what the great ones do. Dak Prescott, the one game I root against this man, and he kills me in the end. Of course he does. But you know what? For this brief moment, Dak, put the Dak hat on for just a moment here. Pretty good job. I wish I could celebrate in it. I'll be rooting for you next week, buddy. I will. But last night was painful. But given the circumstances matter, context matters. Given the circumstances, beat up defense, beat up offensive line, dealing with injuries, getting penalized. McCarthy's calling an average game. Pittsburgh is doing their thing defensively. Weather delay, an hour and a half weather delay. The game ends at 1 a.m. Quarterback like that, that's what he does. Give him an opportunity and he will make you pay. When he got the ball in his hands late, I'm like, gosh darn it, we're going to lose this game. If we don't make one play, one big time, Landon Roberts did his best. Kudos to him. If we don't make one play, he's going to get us. I mean, even, by the way, last thing, and I'll get to the comments. Mid-drive, when Dak hits, I think it was Lipke, Lipke on the long run there for Dallas. Dak Prescott, it's a bad dude right here. Dak turns, I wish we had the picture on here. Dak turns to his right, looks dead, TJ Watt, dead, the best pass rush in the game, dead in the eye, and just laughs at him. I mean, that's the moxie. That's the cool, calm, and collected Dak Prescott that we've grown accustomed to. That's why I've loved the guy since he was in college at Mississippi State, and it's why the Cowboys are lucky to have him. They really, really are. Like some of you, and there's a lot of Cowboys fans that love Dak, like no question. But some of you Cowboys fans act like, oh, he's the source to all our Y'all got blown out if not for that guy last night. He's fantastic. He is as great as they come, short of guys like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Aside from those big four, who to me are the best of the best in the league, he's as good as they come. I thought that was unbelievable by Dak Prescott. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, EJ. He said the play I was talking about earlier that McCarthy challenged and he shouldn't have. He said it was a fumble on the field, clearly recovered. Good point by EJ. Yeah, that was. I don't know what McCarthy saw. As soon as he challenged that, I'm like, what is he doing? He should have challenged the Jalen Brooks play. That was pretty incredible. Jeff, listen, like I said, find you a person in your life, if you're a single person, that loves you the way that Jeff loves Brock Purdy. He says, you ever told me you didn't watch most of the Niners game? How can you say a lot didn't go Brock goes his way? Listen, I'll wait till the segment. Give me about 15 minutes. You'll see. And he says, Bryce, how can you say Brock lost us that game when Dak was really bad the whole game? Oh, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. The turnover's fine. Other than that, Dak was deadly accurate, moved well. The guy's got effing nothing to work with against the top defense in football. And by the way, you know what I love about QBR? Because if you look at Dak's numbers, yeah, you see the fact that he threw for 352 yards, completed a high percent of his throws, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, pass rating of 90. 90 pass rating is not crazy. It's solid. I love about QBR is that you don't see the QBR as soon as the game's over. Right? You got folks that are going in, watching it take. QBR takes into account your legs, maybe interceptions that shouldn't have happened, that did, and vice versa. It takes the whole game into context. And Dak Prescott got a 70 QBR, which is pretty darn solid given what QBR grades tend to be. And EJ said, Tolbert didn't hurt his hands. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank you. That's what I'm saying, EJ. EJ says, Tolbert didn't hurt his hands. The ball skipped off the ground and drilled him in the nuts on that third down play. Still a very strong catch for the game winner. And kudos to him, by the way, for coming back in. Like you saw, listen, all my male audience knows this. They're like, you could see it on television when it happens. It's like, oh, you're just like, oh, you feel that along with the guy. But kudos to Tolbert. Listen, takes two to tango. Dak had to deliver the throw and Tolbert had to make the catch. And it was perfectly executed. It was, by the way, I dumped on McCarthy. Solid play call. It wasn't like crazy exquisite. It was pretty simple, but it shifted the Steelers defense to one side of the field. Just have Tolbert come crossing, across Dak's face to the left. He's got the outside leverage. Dak delivers a good ball. Tolbert makes a great catch. The numbers and the film say otherwise, Jeff, saying he played bad the entire game. That's just objectively false. A lot of the big plays by the Steelers, the bad plays for the Cowboys came off of great Pittsburgh defense. I don't blame Dak for the strip sack. He got freaking TJ Watt and Nick Herbig just basically sandwiching you, not simultaneously, but close to it. Man, oh man. By the way, it'd be nice if George Pickens would run a route full effort. That'd be great. It really would, put somewhat effort into trying to, get open. Is Justin Fields crazy accurate? This year he has been, but generally no. At least put a little effort into those routes. It wouldn't kill you, Pickens. It really wouldn't. Omar Khan, please get Devontae Adams. Get Devontae Adams and let's go draft a quarterback in April and let's forget last night ever happened. Let's erase it from our memories. All right, so I feel like this is going to be the theme of a lot of our shows, like where I lead with the Cowboys and then go right into the Jets. Depending on the Chiefs or the Niners or another, big market team or highly viewed team in the NFL. We'll get to San Francisco in about 10 minutes. I'm not a guy who likes to brag about being right. I'm a very humble individual. Like when I get stuff right, I'm not going to shove it in your face. I'm not going to be a jerk about it. Oh, who are we kidding? That's exactly what I do. Listen, who could have possibly seen the fact that the Jets, and I won't go through the whole diatribe that I did last week, but go through all these disastrous offseason moves the last couple of years, and they're 2-3. And their offense is a disaster. And Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't been good in 3 years, he was bad yesterday. By the way, can we show Aaron Rodgers' numbers? And by the way, the obviously the Jets losing the Vikings 23-17 yesterday in London. Can we see what Aaron Rodgers has done this season? Can we see that? Yikes, those are not good numbers. 19th in pass yards per game, 18th in touchdown interception ratio, 26th in completion, 29th in yards per pass, 26th. Aaron Rodgers, the king of passer rating, 26th in passer rating, 81.6. That's barely above average. 21st in QBR and 25th in team points per game. More on that a little bit later in the segment. But I'm just watching this. I'm watching what the coverage right. Oh, Robert Saleh is the problem. Yes, we know Robert Saleh is not a good coach. Again, I said that as well. Saleh is a dang good defensive coordinator. Not a great head coach. Now, I can make the case, hey, he was forced into a lot of these moves. Joe Douglas is really the guy to blame for a lot of the Jets' struggles. But nonetheless, is the fact that if I asked you, this is to me where it comes down to, because Aaron Rodgers was not very good yesterday against the Vikings. We can look at stats. I've got it on my phone here. Okay, Aaron Rodgers threw not one, not two, three interceptions in this football game against the Vikings. He did throw 2 touchdowns, 244 through the air, barely completed over 50% of his throws, QBR 42, and a pass rating bad of 54.9. Aaron Rodgers was not very good yesterday. And in a game the Vikings lose by 6, he threw 3 picks, including a pick 6, doesn't help. But if I asked you a question, and I said, after the Jets season was over, and I asked you, okay, Jets obviously had a lot of problems. They went 7-10. But what was the biggest problem? Or who can you pinpoint? Who is the biggest, among players, who is the biggest net negative for the New York Jets a season ago? And you'd say, well, it was probably Zach Wilson, right? Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think Zach Wilson's that good. Like, he may be okay as Bo Nix's backup in Denver with Sean Payton. I mean, who knows? But Zach Wilson's not a franchise quarterback the way the Jets had hoped he was when they drafted him 2nd overall 3 years ago. Can we look at this? Because I crunched the numbers when prepping for the show, and I was flabbergasted by what I came out with, okay? So what you're going to see on the left side of the screen is the Jets offense. On the right side of the screen is an equally bad offense. Can we show you those numbers, please? Blind resume. So both teams average the exact same points per game. Yards per game, Jets have them beat by 3 yards. Okay, but the other team has them beat a little bit in terms of yards per play. Jets this year have obviously less than two less turnovers, but 13 more penalties. Both teams have the same record. So I think we'd agree, if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, those numbers are basically identical. Can we show you what that team is? Can we see what they're all about? That's the Jets last year through 5 games. With Zach Wilson, they're basically the exact same offense. Same amount of points per game, yards per game identical, yards per play. The Jets last year actually have the Jets this year beat through the first 5 games. Jets this year have fewer turnovers, but 13 more penalties. They have the exact same record. By the way, to make it even more flagrant, many of the Jets believers coming this year, like the big thing was, hey, we're not necessarily expecting Aaron Rodgers to be peak Aaron Rodgers MVP guy. We're not necessarily expecting our offense to be like the prime Kansas City Chiefs or San Francisco or these days the Washington Commanders. But if nothing else, our defense is going to be great. And last year, in stretches, yeah, it was. The defense kept them in a lot of games. Let's look at these stats, folks, because this year's Jets defense through the first 5 games is way better. Way better, okay? They averaged 4 fewer points per game given up, almost 100 less yards given up, 50-plus pass yards less given up by this year's Jets defense as opposed to last year, and 5 more sacks by the Jets this year than they had a year ago at this time. The Jets defense, by every metric, top 5 in the league. By those metrics through the first 5 games, average, not great. And they have the same record. Maybe that's Aaron Rodgers' fault. Maybe it's the fault of a guy who folks are finally coming to my side of the table on this. Has not been good in 3 years. Last time Aaron Rodgers won a playoff game was the COVID year, 2020. Last time Aaron Rodgers threw for 300 yards, week 14 of the 2021 season. His last year in Green Bay, he was a slightly above average quarterback on a losing football team that went to the playoffs with his replacement. Jordan Love. And by the way, Packers look pretty good this year too. Shocker. Like the idea that this team, listen, the Bills are in a free fall right now. Like, I mean, I'll talk about Buffalo later in the show. Buffalo's not playing very good football. I still think they're the clear favorites to win the AFCs. Miami's 2 injury plague. Patriots are just bad. The expectations that were on this Jets team coming this season, I couldn't understand it. Maybe it was just as simple as, and I get this, by the way, as Jets fans who have suffered a lot of crap, particularly the quarterback position, over the last 15 years since their last playoff appearance. They're just like, hey, finally we've got an old quarterback off an Achilles surgery who, by the way, is beat up again. You saw him re-aggravate that knee injury against the Vikings yesterday. The Jets defense is actually amazing when it wasn't that good through the first 5 games last year. And they had the same record with the same amount of points scored. And an Aaron Rodgers defender say, hey, Bryson, what about Nathaniel Hackett? A, Hackett ain't there without Rodgers, so you can't use that excuse. B, even if you want to, the measure of a competent offensive coordinator or play call in general, what's your first 15 plays? These are scripted. You worked on these throughout the week. What do you got? First 15 plays. Here's what the Jets did in their first few drives. 3 and out, pick 6. By the way, followed by an interception 3 plays after that. 3 offensive plays after that. This is a poorly run franchise with a bad general manager who allowed this all to happen in the first place. An old, washed, not that good anymore quarterback. A receiving court. Add Devontae Adams. Listen, have at it. Add Devontae Adams. It's not going to change things drastically because you have a bad OC and you have a quarterback who ain't that good anymore. At this point, I can confidently say Aaron Rodgers below average. If you took all 32 starters, I'd take over half over him today. What data, what evidence do we have that this is the same guy from 3 years ago, prior to an Achilles surgery, with a better run franchise in the easier conference? By the way, the Jets defense, again, it's been great. It's been fantastic. Wasn't as good last year. Same record, 2-3. And I'm here to tell you, folks, I said back in December, I may pull the clip before the next Jets loss because newsflash, it's coming next Monday. Y'all ain't beating the Bills. And as bad as my Steelers offense is, Dak Prescott's good enough to rise above the Steelers defense. Aaron Rodgers is not. He is not. Unless the Steelers give the Jets some serious help in terms of bad decision-making at the quarterback position, Jets aren't beating the Steelers. So they're going to be 2-5 on October 21st when I come in on my show that day. Is that, again, you got Buffalo, you got the Steelers, Patriots, okay. Then you got the Texans against a Cardinals team that could score points, okay. Indianapolis, Joe Flacco can do this thing. Seattle, I mean, this looks like every bit of the 7-10 team that I said they'd be around December last year and certainly before this season. I'm just, by the way, I saw this as well, that on I think I have this in my notes here. Yeah. That on a per route basis, and this is like 2nd, 3rd, 4th level analytics, but on a per route basis, Garrett Wilson was more productive last year with Zach Wilson than with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's because Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson had a rapport. And maybe Aaron Rodgers would have a rapport with this player if he showed up to mandatory minicamp. Just an idea. It's not a good football team. It's not. And Sam Darnold didn't even play that well. Now, again, a lot of that is the Jets defense, to their credit. But Sam Darnold kind of looks like the Jets Sam Darnold in spurts yesterday. He threw a bad interception in the second half. And kudos, by the way, the Vikings. Vikings fans may get mad and be like, hey, give us some credit. Well, I'll give you some credit. Minnesota Vikings, only team in the NFL, top 6 in terms of scoring offense and scoring defense. So in other words, they score a lot of points and you don't score a lot of points against them. So kudos to Minnesota. And that was one of my, if I were a bet man games, and I cashed in on 2 of 3 of those, would have been 3-0 if Dak Prescott didn't stab me in the chest at the end. It's not a good team. It's not a good football team. Point blank. And Jeff, you and I were on this. Bro, these stat lines are insane. We both called it on Rodgers. And considering the Jets improved their offensive line a bit from last year, hurts Rodgers' case even more. EJ Savage. I think a big problem with the Jets is they can't get Breece Hall going. That and their offensive line is just abysmal. Yeah, I mean, listen, the O-line I don't think has played that well, but they did add guys like, former Cowboy, EJ, subscribe to the Boys in the Zone podcast, by the way, on the Grid Network. Great guy. I was on his show last week. EJ's a cool dude. Please subscribe to his show. They took Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. And Ty Smith can still play. To your point about Breece Hall, yeah, they do need to get him going, but it'd be nice if they just give him the football, and or if Rodgers wouldn't keep putting them in holes with these interceptions. And by the way, let's be fair here, because I'm critical of Aaron often on this show. I mean, I've been labeled an Aaron hater. I think my record shows I've mostly been right on this player, that he's an all-time great talent. He's one of, no doubt, the 10 greatest to ever play the game. And if it's not going to happen, but in the make-believe world where he were to win another Super Bowl, he's got a great case to be top 5. But to be fair to Aaron, and again, I've been all-time great player, but a bad playoff performer, an abysmal leader of a locker room throughout his career. And at this stage, not that good anymore. But to be fair to Aaron, Aaron's often smug and taking shots at the press conference. He took accountability. Aaron said after the game, like, hey, in a game that we lose by 6, those 3 picks, one of them being a pick 6, those add up. Those are really the difference in the football game. So, kudos to him, but it's not a good team. And I feel bad for Jets fans. I do. I know Jets fans in my life, and they're loyal as they come. They've been through a lot as a team. People talk about, Cleveland. Cleveland. Jets fans, yeah, they won a Super Bowl in '69, but since then they've had some AFC title game appearances, but boy, they went through a lot, especially in the last 15 years. And I get from their mindset, it's like, God, we just want Aaron to be good. We have had great quarterback play forever. That ain't gonna happen. All right. You know what? I'll get to Brock Purdy after the break. So we'll be back in 1 minute on Carving Up Live. A fired up show today. This is so much going on in the world of sports. October is prime sports content creating season. So we will be back. We're a half hour into the show. We're just getting started, y'all. Be back in a minute live on Carving Up to talk about Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Be right back. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Real quick, I got a comment from my man EJ Savage. I always want to get to him because he's a good friend of mine, teammate at the Grid. And please, once again, go subscribe to his Boys in the Zone podcast. Does some great work on there. Clearly, I'm seeing in our Grid Network group chat is ticking off some people on Twitter just by being objective. So EJ, keep doing what you're doing, my man. But EJ says, I'm not trying to defend Rodgers after that game. He was bad, but I really think that the OC is the biggest problem. Unfortunately, Rodgers defends him every chance he gets. So there's no sympathy. And I think you pretty much answered that yourself, EJ. Like, if it was just in a vacuum, a bad OC, Aaron had nothing to do with him being there. By the way, I think Hackett would have been gone. Let's say Rodgers just retired out of the blue after last year, and I've had a terrible way to end a career on a blown Achilles. But let's say he retires. My man's gone. Like, Hackett's out of there. But Aaron wanted control. Aaron wanted comfort with the Jets, and this is what you get. This is what you get when you hand the franchise over to that guy. So there you go. Let's talk San Francisco 49ers. This was one of my if I were a Batman games. I almost, and gosh darn it, I wish I would have picked the Cardinals. I was so close to picking them to win this football game. I thought Cardinals plus 7.5 was a pretty obvious bet, just in the sense that, hey, it's a divisional game. Those are always close. Jonathan Gannon, for the limitations Arizona has defensively, Jonathan Gannon's a really smart DC. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles that. They could sure use him. Okay. San Francisco, I didn't think played amazing against New England. New England's just a really, really bad football team. Just talked about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers carved up that defense. Like, it's just about anybody can. So I thought this was a winnable game for Arizona, but the Niners, just on talent, Kyle Shanahan will pull it at the end. So I have been labeled, unfairly I might add, as a Brock Purdy hater. As I've always said, in politics, we have conservatives and we have liberals, and my view on Brock Purdy kind of aligns with my political affiliation, independent. I'm an independent observer. I'm not a Brock Purdy supporter. I'm not a 49ers fan. I'm not a Rams, Seahawks, or Cardinals fan or otherwise saying, hey, this guy's no good. He's Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0. I have said, literally since he played his first game when Jimmy G got hurt. Remember that game 2 years ago? The Dolphins, Jimmy G goes down and Mr. Irrelevant comes in, plays pretty well. And then the next week against Tom Brady's Buccaneers has the game of his life. And he's been the guy ever since. So I've said mobility, accuracy, seeing the field. He's far smarter with the football than Jimmy G is. And to me, the biggest thing is that San Francisco back in the day used to win games in spite of Garoppolo. He would play his playoff numbers, go check them. They're horrendous. They went in spite of Jimmy, not the case with Purdy. So I want to get that on the record and make myself abundantly clear. But my criticism of this, like the reverse of the Dak Prescott performance yesterday, with the Dallas Cowboys. Are we dealing with connection issues? I think looks like my monitor says I've frozen. Hang on. Hope y'all can still hear me right now. Sometimes we deal with this on the show. Hang on, folks. If you guys can still hear me, let me know. But I want to make sure we are firing on all cylinders right now. See if we can get the connection back. Because I don't want to go into the segment until I want to make sure the quality's good for content creating purposes and making sure we're all right. So how about this? So sometimes we do this on the show. How about I get out of here, take another quick break, and then we'll come back unless the Wi-Fi's fixed. The Wi-Fi back? We good? I think we're good. We're good. Okay, let's go. So back into the 49ers game. Back into that. So hopefully y'all heard my entire take on Purdy as it relates to how I've always viewed him. Is that my criticism of this particular player, and again, it's the switcheroo of the Dak Prescott game yesterday with the Dallas Cowboys. I shouldn't say just about, more things than not went the San Francisco 49ers way. Now, they lost their kicker. That's big. I have Kyle Juszczyk attempting kicks yesterday. Jake Moody, prayers to him. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. But I wrote them down, okay? So they're at home. That's number one. Number two, against a one-win team. Number three, blocked kick return for a touchdown. Arizona in the first half, I'm like, okay, they're moving the football. They're getting stuff going, and James Conner's running the football, and Kyler Murray's elusive. They set up for a field goal in the first half, and bam, that sucker gets blocked and taken back the distance. Kind of like the Seahawks and Giants game ended. By the way, upset of the week, right? Thank you, New York Giants. But almost identical. That sucker gets blocked, taken back the other way, and I'm thinking, looks like Cardinals plus 7.5 might have just gone up in smoke on that play. That's frustrating. Also the fact, Nick Bosa picked off Kyler Murray. By the way, Kyler just kind of stands there all nonchalant, like, bro, you just made the mistake of the game, potentially throwing a pick to a defensive end. Nick Bosa's an awesome pass rusher. He's not there to intercept passes and take him, as far as he can. And yet they scored 0 in the second half. And there is, if you notice when I talked about Brock Purdy 2 weeks ago, when they played the Los Angeles Rams in LA. But let's be honest, Rams and Chargers games might as well be home games. I mean, Green Bay fans, again, what is up with y'all? Y'all took over LA yesterday. Brock Purdy. No George Kittle. No Christian McCaffrey. No Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk, again, teetering a little bit, which I actually thought Ayuk was really good yesterday. It was basically Purdy and Juwan Jennings or bust. And I thought Purdy played the best game of his career in that game. I've been waiting. Okay, can Brock Purdy just one time? And can he sustain this? Remember, I said after the game, can he sustain this? Things aren't going totally ideal. Yes, he's got Kyle Shanahan, but man's gotta have something. Like I'm not gonna say, hey, I gotta see Brock Purdy have jack squat, and then I'll say he's good. Didn't say that. But last night, trailing in a spot where his team needs him, down by 1. His team scored zilch in the second half, and he throws a pick to end the game. Now, one thing, too, that I've said about Brock, again, what are you, like I said about Dak, and go back to the Albert Einstein quote from the beginning of the show. Adversity introduces a man to himself. When the fit hit the sham, when nothing was going the Cowboys' way, what did Dak Prescott do? He led you to a game-winning touchdown. That's what. What is Brock Purdy in his career? In the regular season, I want to be totally, transparent about that. Regular season, which is a bigger sample size, mind you. What is Brock Purdy when trailing? And the answer is he's an atrocious quarterback. We can show you the numbers. Okay? 819 yards. That's the second half this season. That should say second half of his career. So that's an error right there. But trailing the second half of his career, 819 yards, 2 touchdowns and 8 picks, completing 63% of his passes. That's not disastrous. A passer rating of 62. That's bad. That's real bad. He's not efficient. He doesn't make good decisions. Now, by the way, he can still turn this around because we have evidence. It's in there. We've seen him play. Now, he didn't play from behind the Rams game, but he played under adverse circumstances. He was missing a lot of his guys. He can only trust one guy, Juwan Jennings. And I said after the game, Brock Purdy's the last reason the Niners lost to the Rams in week 3. Last reason. He was great. But we have a larger sample size of him not being great under adverse circumstances than him being Superman. And it also goes back. To something. Remember when Purdy said during training camp is that, what was this quote? When I have the lead, when we've got teams in a situation where we can close them out, I want to be Tom Brady and rip their heart out of their chest. Up 13, zilcho in the second half. We would crush, to go back to Dak, we would crush Dak Prescott if that happened, especially with 2 turnovers. Heck, I'll get to Joe Burrow. Folks are crushing Joe Burrow, and he might be the best quarterback in the league this season, statistically. We crushed Lamar when the Ravens lose, and he doesn't play fantastic. Heck, folks are, in some ways, understandably so, criticizing Mahomes for playing pretty good, but nothing special in the Chiefs' 4-0 start. We criticize guys in wins more than we crush Brock Purdy in losses. But in another sense, my expectations of Brock aren't sky high. My expectations are not to be on that level of certainly of Mahomes, but of the Josh Allen, of the Joe Burrow, of the Lamar Jackson, who to me are in that next tier behind Mahomes, or even frankly the tier after that. Dak, Stroud, Jordan Love, guys like that. Heck, Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins looks like they might be in that. I don't expect that from him. In large part because we know, and I said last season, I said all off season, identity of that football team, 2 words, Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Shanahan, winning record with Christian McCaffrey is there, losing record when he's gone. Niners offense, last year, number uno in the red zone. Last season, Christian McCaffrey played every game last year. This year, Christian McCaffrey's yet to take the field. Niners are 30th in red zone offense. is that when you have a guy that special behind you to hand the football off to and just make guys miss, he can run in between the tackles. He can beat your best defensive backs once he gets in the open field. McCaffrey's a game changer. He's the best offensive player in the game all around. But Kittle was there yesterday, and so was Debo. Now, Debo should have got more targets. That's on Kyle Shanahan. Debo Samuel should get more than 4 touches. Like, that can't happen. And Jordan Mason did fumble. I get it. But Rico Dowdle fumbled too on the goal line. And Dak said, man, I'm not saying Purdy should have recovered. But again, things didn't always go Dak's way. Things don't always go swimmingly for you. Ball in his hands. Minute and change to go. All he needs is a field goal. Now, you'd have to probably get further than that because the fact that your kicker was out. But San Francisco's an explosive off offense. They have them plenty of weapons, Debo didn't get enough targets, like a Juwan Jennings, like a Brandon Ayuk, who I thought was excellent yesterday. And he couldn't get done. We have a larger, by the way, again, I'm not saying this is who he's always going to be. I want to make that clear because there are folks that do say that, like, this is who he is, this is who he's always going to be. I'm not saying that. This is his 3rd year in the league. He can still get better. And we have seen him, not trailing, but under adverse circumstances against the Rams, get the job done as best he could. His defense just couldn't get a stop late against the Rams. And the special team screwed up as well in that game, by the way. We have a larger sample size of what we saw yesterday than what we have otherwise. Can we pull up that graphic one more time? When trailing, again, that says in the second half this season, that should say in the second half of his career. 819 yards, 2-8 touchdown interception ratio. That is as bad as it gets. 63% completion and a passer rating of 62. 62 passer rating when trailing in the second half of his career in the regular season. That's bad. That's real bad. Honestly, I give him a little bit more of a pass if he was missing some of those other guys. But there is, at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, don't get caught in the trap of setting Purdy's expectations too high. My job is just to try and lower it down slightly. Not to the point where the Purdy haters have him where he's like, he's barely a top 20 quarterback. I don't buy into that nonsense. Purdy's a really, really good player. He's far better than what the Niners had. That's why the Niners ceiling is far higher now than when it was with Jimmy Garoppolo. And he can make certain plays that Jimmy just straight up can't make. But he also can't make plays that some of these other guys above him can. I mean, the adverse circumstance for what he was trailing. Now, he lost his kicker. I get that. But trailing 0? Not zilcho in the second half? Nothing? I mean, a QBR of 29 yesterday and a 0 to 100. That's awful. I'm just saying, if I know I keep bringing this man's name up, but if that was Dak, we'd be crushing him today. And Dak doesn't have Kyle Shanahan, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk. I rest my case. Let's see what Jeff has to say. Oh, here we go. Jeff, dude, you don't know what you're talking about, man. He had more game-winning drives in the playoffs and the NFC Championship game, something your boy Dak never has. Be nice if Dak had what Purdy had, but continue. Don't bring up a lucky catch by Ayuk at the end of the day. We won. Dak doesn't in the playoffs, and I know that hurts you. Yes, I understand. I touched a nerve. I get it. I touched a nerve in the biggest Brock Purdy fan on earth, and I will fully admit that. I understand. Again, going to us earlier, we saw a good example. Dak with basically nothing around him still wins the game against the top defense in the league. Purdy just missing Christian McCaffrey. Still showed the second half. None. Brock Purdy won the playoffs. So Jimmy Garoppolo. Heck, so Russell Wilson back in the day when he had beast mode in the Legion of Boom. He can win too. It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, folks think I think Purdy's bad. I think Purdy's really, matter of fact, I think a really, really good quarterback. I do. The guy is not on that level though. See, come on. Now Jeff's taking a shot at Juwan Jennings. Man, Jeff, you and I both, and I don't want to sound like the biased Tennessee guy, but you and I both been going on and on about Juwan Jennings. Come on, don't take a shot at my man. He wasn't all that great yesterday, but generally, I mean, Jennings was the saving grace for them 2 weeks ago. He had the Jerry Rice performance against the Rams. Again, larger sample size that Purdy's bad in the fourth quarter when trailing, or second half when trailing, than not. He's not Mahomes, but Mahomes statistically is actually a better quarterback when trailing. At least some of the numbers say he's actually better when trailing. which Mahomes is just on a different planet. That goes without saying. Chiefs, Saints predictions at the end of today's show. Move on to Buffalo. Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans. This is a game I did not want to touch in terms of again, if I were a bet man, that's to say if, because I had too many questions about both. Both are talented teams. Both have top of the line quarterbacks. Both are I still believe in the Bills as potential fringe contenders in the AFC, and the Texans. My only concern about Houston is just youth. That's my issue with them. Houston Texans win what looked like a snoozer. And it ends up turning into an exciting win, 23-20 at home against the Buffalo Bills in a game where Josh Allen is bad. And that's the thing. Josh Allen's something else, man. He is, my man Barry Grant Jr. has compared him to prime Russell Westbrook, and I think it's a great comparison, right? Flashy, athletic, can do things that most guys just flat out can't do, but not the highest IQ player, which kudos. Josh Allen's not thrown an interception this year, so kudos to him. But this is a guy who will just miss. Like, Westbrook was not a good jump shooter. Allen will miss some routine throws. Like, bro, what were you thinking there? What did you see? This is insane. Josh Allen went 9 for 30 yesterday. Man completed 30% of his throws. That's unheard of. Tebow did better than that. Buck 31 through the air, a touchdown. Passing, QBR of 55. I don't know how he got a QBR of 55. Again, Houston had a good defensive game plan, but still at a passer rating of 56. Again, here's what we know about Josh Allen. His highs are Mahomes and Brady, and his lows are, I don't know, Nathan Peterman. Like, honestly, it's his lows are pretty darn low, and his highs are, goes to the moon. And this does go, again, I think Josh Allen is, of course, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the game. You don't need me to tell you that. And I think the Bills are still a potential contender. There is the concern, hey, what are they going to do against good teams? Because their 3-0 start was against 3 squads. I get that. Here's what I really want to talk about, though. I've oftentimes compared Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills, to Mark Jackson, who is the head coach of my Golden State Warriors. And I'll say now what I've said pretty much since the show's inception, is that Mark Jackson needs a head coaching job in the NBA. Y'all GMs, ain't no reason y'all keep getting fired like crazy. Give this guy a shot. Does anybody create a better culture and build confidence among young players like Mark Jackson? I know it's been a decade. Give the man an opportunity, for crying out loud. He built the foundation in Golden State. Steve Kerr elevated it to a different level. I digress. But that's what Sean McDermott did. He took over a Buffalo Bills franchise that hadn't won a playoff game, I think, since the 99 season, since the freaking 20th century. Takes over. They make the playoffs year 1. Year 3 with Josh Allen, they make it again year 4. They win playoff games once they obviously get Brian Dable, and Josh Allen continues to progress and develop. But the Warriors may have gotten a championship, maybe two, with Mark Jackson. But kind of like Doug Collins, who is a really good coach of the Bulls, they needed Phil Jackson to take that to a new level. The Warriors need Steve Kerr to take it to a new level. I thought the end of that game, Zach Taylor was almost as bad at the end of that Bengals game. I thought the end of that game for the Buffalo Bills was about as inexcusable a finish, play calling wise, as I've ever seen in my life. So I'll set up the situation for you. So the Bills defense bends but doesn't break, forces a punt from the Houston Texans inside of a minute to go. They down the punt at Buffalo's own 3-yard line. Bills at their own 3. Houston has all 3 of their timeouts with 32 seconds left in the game. Here's the play calls. Josh Allen deep throw, Keon Coleman incomplete. Josh Allen incomplete deep ball to Matt Collins. Josh Allen incomplete deep ball to Curtis Samuel. They then punt to the Texans, who had the ball with 7 seconds to go at the Buffalo 46. They get a quick completion. Stroud to Gumbo Wale for 5 yards. And Kemi Fairbairn, who's darn good kicker, hits the walk-off from, 59 yards out? 59 yards out. Buffalo, the fact that the Bills were even in that game is a minor miracle. I mean, Houston kind of self-destructed at times of the second half. I mean, this is, I mean, I probably should have tweeted it just to have it on the record, but I'm watching this game on the multi-view on YouTube TV, NFL Sunday Ticket. I've got that in the corner like, well, that's going overtime. We're going to get Josh Allen, CJ Stroud in overtime. We ended up getting Lamar versus Burrow in overtime. Like, man, this is great. What a great NFL Sunday. And then I see him throw. I'm like, well, that's strange, but okay. Maybe they just wanted to, they threw it again. Well, crap, now they have to throw it a third time, and that doesn't work. Anyone who's watched this show long enough knows clock management is almost like a religious practice for me. Like it is when most of the mistakes in football, nationally televised football, when it comes to clock management, most of that comes from college guys, not NFL guys. That was a college level mistake by Sean McDermott. Bruh, you haven't played that well in the game and you're tied with Houston, who's outplayed you throughout most. Take a knee and go to overtime. And if Houston calls a timeout, well, you got James Cook, you got Josh Allen. Let's run the football. Let's see if we can get, if nothing else, let's just get a first down so Houston's gets rid of their timeouts and we can go to OT and see what happens. Because I think if you're Houston in that spot, you're going to overtime. Sure, you're at home and that is your saving grace, but at the same time, you're like, we shouldn't be here. This is not. Whereas on the Buffalo sideline, it's like, hey, we make one or two plays, we can steal this thing. We can be the clear-cut first place, or by multiple games at least, in the AFC East, and hand Houston would have been a pretty devastating loss given the fact that they were up 20-3. I thought that was as inexcusable a mistake as I've ever seen. Maybe not that I've ever seen. That's hyperbole. Nick Sirianni in week 2, that was as bad as I've ever seen. Sean McDermott's a good coach. Sean McDermott is a culture-building coach. He's a great defensive guy. Like if I were who's a good example? I don't know. Think about a team that's struggling, needs some guidance and direction. I mean, Jacksonville to a certain degree. I don't know. How about the Saints if they were to move off of, or the Cardinals, for example? Like Jonathan Gannon's good, but I don't think he's certainly not proven to be as good of a coach as McDermott. If the Cardinals were to fire Jonathan Gannon tomorrow, Sean McDermott might be one of the first guys I call. Like Kyler's a veteran at this stage, but he's still relatively young, and you got a lot of young guys in that squad, particularly in your offensive line and your skill position group in terms of your receivers. Like you need a guy to come in there, stabilize the franchise, and put yourself in a position to where we can build, be a playoff team, and then we transition to our next guy. Again, I know it's a basketball example, but it's Doug Collins to Phil Jackson. It's Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. They're not winning a Super Bowl with this guy coach. And he's fine. I'm not trying to make him out like he's Sirianni or something who's totally in over his head. He's a culture builder. But that's what he is more than anything. A culture builder who could stabilize the franchise, develop players well. You get to the playoffs with him. You got to retire heights with Josh Allen. And that's not to absolve Josh of blame. Josh was really, really bad yesterday throughout big stretches. I mean, he missed some absolute layup throws, like Anthony Richardson level missed layups here, what we're talking about. But it's one thing if Buffalo loses. It's another one if they were bad all game and then they just shot themselves in the foot further. Just unforced errors. I mean, it's like there's an old saying in the NFL, like you win more games, or you lose more games than you win, or something like that. Basically saying that there's games that are there for the taking, and it's really you kind of hurting yourself. And I think Buffalo's a prime example of that. That was pretty unbelievable. Also was unbelievable is the quarterback duel of the ages, for the ages, rather, to misquote the great Jim Nantz. Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals, Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, playing the game of the year. Ravens winning an old school, like Big 12, the old school Big 12 matchup by a final score of 41-38 in OT. Lamar Jackson, how about him? How about, over 400 total yards, over 400 total yards, 4 touchdowns, did have a turnover, QBR 59, passer rating of 119. Joe Burrow, on the other hand, how about almost 400 yards himself? How about 5 touchdowns? How about a QBR of 77, 0 to 100, and a passer rating of 137? So for Baltimore, I'll start with Baltimore, then go to Cincinnati. I feel so weird about the Ravens right now, because a lot of folks who've been watching this show remember how I said coming into the season that history shows, I probably sound like a broken record, but I don't care. History shows if you lose to a team in week 1 that beat you the year prior in the playoffs, you tend to miss the playoffs. Now, I didn't think the Ravens would miss the playoffs. If they did, and it obviously did end up losing to Kansas City, but I did think that this team was going to take a little bit of a step back. Even despite adding Derrick Henry, who's been better than I thought. Derrick Henry made the play at the end with the long run to put them in a situation where Justin Tucker can walk it off with a chip shot kick. The thing with Baltimore, and I don't get it. Because, I mean, Derrick Henry averaged 6 yards a carry yesterday and has been the best back in the game by a long shot this year in the NFL. Although, Bigsby for the Jags is doing his best to, put himself in that combo. Lamar Jackson threw 42 times yesterday. Now, you would think, given the fact that Cincinnati has a terrible defense across the board, stopping the pass, stopping the run, regardless, you would think Baltimore would say, hey, this is going to be a bleed clock game with Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson's going to run the football. We're just not going to shoot ourselves in the foot because we know our pass defense, by the numbers, might be the worst in the NFL. But I mean, Baltimore, every quarterback they played has went crazy. Mahomes has had his best game against the Ravens. Against the Ravens. Gardner Minshew had his best game against the Ravens. Dak Prescott was great in the fourth quarter against the Ravens. Josh Allen did struggle, but that was because Baltimore, again, ball control, built a lead, rode Derrick Henry. Baltimore does not want to be in a lot of spots where Lamar Jackson's throwing the ball 42 times and Derrick Henry gets 15 carries. Like that shouldn't happen. And again, I get late, they're down double digits, so they have to throw the football. But I think had they kind of set that tone, run the football earlier, and not had to rely on Lamar beating you with his arm, although it's a win for those like myself that have said Lamar's better throwing the football than he gets credit for. Lamar can sling it. That play that he made down the red zone of the third down where he's rolling to his right, commits the cardinal sin for quarterbacking, throwing across your body. I think it was to Isaiah Likely, but throwing across your body for the touchdown. Only guys like Kim Mahomes and to a certain degree Allen can make those plays. So kudos to Lamar, and it's a dire situation. You got to try and make something happen. I think Baltimore, again, is, I said last week, they found their identity. Ravens are back to doing what they do. I don't trust their defense, but offensively, they're fine. It's not that they're not fine a week later. For crying out loud, they scored 41 points. That's pretty good. Now, Bengals have a bad defense, but kudos to Baltimore. But that was not that. If the Ravens are going to win this game, and I didn't think they would, I think the Bengals would eke it out, and not for a bad play calling and a bad snap at the end, they would have. I think Baltimore would have just rode Derrick Henry, Lamar throwing the ball 20 to 25 times, maybe if the situation calls for it, 30 passes. Just a little concerning for the Ravens. Like, Lamar can do that. I've said for years Lamar can do that. Lamar can play from behind. Lamar can throw from the pocket. He can make plays out of the pocket, and God knows he can do we know what he can do with his legs. But that doesn't need to be the formula for the Ravens to win football games moving forward. This needs to be a Derrick Henry-led offense with Lamar Jackson taking advantage of that, taking advantage of loaded boxes, which, you have to imagine the Ravens will continue to face this year. And then they got to fix that defense. Mike McDonald, that loss has been apparent for this football team. As for Cincinnati, I have been stunned, and I'm not stunned much, from the coverage that I've seen, of the Bengals this season as it relates to why they're 1-4. Chris Canty, and, shout out Chris Canty. I believe he won a Super Bowl back in the day with the Giants. But I heard Chris Canty. I've heard a lot of other folks in the media say, Joe Burrow's the problem. Joe Burrow's not doing enough. Can we show you Joe Burrow's numbers? Let's see. He's first in touchdown passes, first in passer rating. That's kind of a big one. Second in completion percentage. He might be the most accurate QB in the game. Third in touchdown to interception ratio. Fifth in team points per game. And seventh in pass yards per game. Joe Burrow's doing his job. He darn sure did his job yesterday. 5 touchdown passes. Okay, now I get it. He had the late interception in the fourth quarter that gave Baltimore life. I get that. But scoring 38 points at home, that should get the job done. And there has to come a point in time where, listen, the Bengals always get off to these 0-2 starts, but now they're 1-4. I'm not selling stock in the Bengals because if you have a guy that great, if I don't sell my stock in the Cowboys with Dak, y'all know I love Dak, but he's not Joe Burrow. I'm darn sure not selling stock on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in particular with that duo. It's time to start asking questions about Zach Taylor, if it wasn't already, because I've always said about Zach Taylor, is when you look at these great coaches around the league, or at least coaches that have been to the Super Bowl within the last 5 to 10 years, and you look at Belichick, and you look at Reed, and you look at Pete Carroll, Kyle Shanahan, like a lot of guys who are just we know are bona fide excellent coaches. We would certainly not put Zach Taylor in that tier. But my thing for Zach Taylor has always been, well, he doesn't get in the way. I mean, like he's kind of a net neutral in some ways. Joe Burrow's going to do his thing when he's healthy. So is Jamar Chase. The defense, that's on Anarumo. By the way, the Bengals defense hasn't been that good. I don't know if it's a personnel problem, a coaching problem, both. It's when you have a guy, when Burrow has an injury history that he has, we don't know how long this guy's prime is going to be, especially in a physical division like the AFC North, where the Browns, Steelers, and Ravens historically, may not be the case this year with two of them, but historically have great defenses. So he's going to take shots. The Bengals O-line, they've done their best to try and improve it, but it has struggled over the course of Joe Burrow's career. So with this window that you have, and by the way, you may miss out on it this year because T. Higgins is not going to be a Bengal next season. You have to draft somebody to fill that number 2 spot, and T. Higgins could be a number 1 in a lot of places. You got to make sure you capitalize on this. And by the way, listen, Cincinnati, man, like there's certain franchises that are just really cheap. Cincinnati's certainly one of them. Is it? I think it's Paul Brown. Is that the owner's name? It just does not mean. How is Jamar Chase not extended? How is Jamar Chase not a Cincinnati Bengal? How has he not got the biggest contract, or at least one of the 3 biggest, along with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, one of the top 3 highest paid receivers in the game? Not that he's not going to get that contract. He will. It shouldn't have taken this long. It really, really shouldn't have. So Cincinnati's a cheap franchise. This is I don't know if they're going to be able to capitalize on this Joe Burrow window. And this, to me, is the second best quarterback in the game of Mahomes. He's the only active guy to beat Mahomes in a playoff game, and he did it at Arrowhead Stadium, outplaying Patrick. And to me, that holds a ton of weight in my book because nobody else has done it other than Tom Brady. And newsflash, he was a pretty good quarterback. So it is time to start asking questions about Zach Taylor. And the reason I bring up the ownership in Cincinnati is that an attractive job? Would a Belichick, would a Mike Vrabel, would a Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, like, would these guys want to take that? I don't know. Brian Flores, by the way. And now Flores would fix the defense. Like, actually, Brian Flores, hey, might have thought of something. That might actually work if the offensive coaching staff in Cincinnati is solid. Flores will get the defense fixed. We know that. I don't know how attractive a job that is. It's attractive because you got an amazing quarterback and wide receiver. I don't know. I don't trust that ownership in Cincinnati. I really don't. All right. Be back with Week 5 recap as well. Predictions for tonight's game between the Saints and the Chiefs in just a minute. Be back in a minute with a recap of Week 5 NFL action. It was a fun weekend. No question about it, but we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Carving It Up Live. It's been a lively show today. Listen, I'm fired up. There's nothing better than October. It's been actually quite warm around the country. I actually saw it at the Niners game, and I know that's on the West Coast. I'm here in Tennessee, but I actually saw on the West Coast in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium when the Niners play. Like, some of the fans were like in the concourse having to watch the game because it was so hot. You know, listen, I was at the Titans-Packers game 2 weeks ago in Nashville. that was far and away the hottest game I've ever been to. I mean, it was 94. There was no breeze. Once the clouds passed, it was miserable. Like, we left like mid third quarter, especially once Green Bay kind of blew it open. Hot football games are no fun. Then again, the cold ones are kind of tough because you're just sitting there and it's freezing. I don't know how you cheeseheads do it. I don't know, make fun of cheeseheads. They're very nice people. Cheeseheads are nice people. But anyways, football weather talk. There you go. And by the way, once again, I know I said this last week, but I want to continue to harp on it. There's still a lot of devastation from Hurricane Helene down here in the Southeast. Again, I as someone who lives in Tennessee, I'm pretty close to this, to some of the damage. I live very close to it in Asheville, North Carolina. It's absolutely heartbreaking what's going on. So if you can donate, World Central Kitchen, Convoy of Hope, and American Red Cross, any of those organizations do unbelievable work to help, all of these victims of this hurricane. So if you could chip in anything, $5, anything, it would anything goes a long way in trying to help these communities, because it's gonna take a really long time for them to get back on their feet. And so definitely hits close to home. So hopefully we can do everything we can to try and help these people out. So any of those organizations, I put the links on last Monday's show: Convoy of Hope, World Central Kitchen, and American Red Cross. Please, if you can, donate to any of those three, because this community's definitely gone through a lot. Let's go through Week 5 recap in the National Football League. First off, finally, my man. I didn't say that right. I didn't say that right.
Finally, it is
finally. By the way, good to see The Rock over this weekend. The WWE. Trevor Lawrence, finally, for the first time since Thanksgiving last year, or Thanksgiving weekend at the very least, came through, played some really, really solid football for the Jaguars yesterday. Okay, 371 yards through the air, 2 touchdown passes, QBR of 79, passer rating of 119. Now, I get it. The Colts aren't a very good defense, so you got to factor that in as well. But that's the Trevor Lawrence. By the way, Tank Bigsby, big time performance from him. I mean, he's having to make Doug Peterson have to answer questions. Is Travis Etienne going to get benched? Doesn't look like it. But Tank Bigsby, 13 carries for a $101 and 2 touchdowns. Very impressive performance from him. But Trevor Lawrence, Jags aren't dead yet. If they lost this game, they were done. Like, I was going to sell all my stock in the Jaguars. It's over. They're not done. And by the way, what do we know about the Jaguars? They like playing in London. They like playing across the pond. Well, you got the Bears. That's a tough one because the Bears got a great defense. And Caleb Williams, get to him in a minute, playing good football. But the Jags, they can win that game. And they're definitely beating the Patriots in 2 weeks in London. If they can find a way to win those 2 games, they're 3-4 all of a sudden. The sky's not falling. We got a shot. Trevor's like the Bengals, although Burrow's not off to the cold start. The Bengals defense is, but Trevor's like the Bengals. Just give him time to work himself into a rhythm. Saw it in 2022. When healthy, he could be really good. Trevor Lawrence, love less off from you, man. Keep it up. Dolphins pass was as bad as we thought, 15-10. Controversial call on a controversial rule. The kid, a Polk for the Patriots, caught what I thought live was a touchdown to put the Patriots in front of the Dolphins. Ended up getting called back because obviously Polk got his toes down. His back was his back was to the the back line of the end zone. Gets his toes down, but because his heels come in inbounds or out of bounds, it doesn't count for a touchdown. But the reverse is a touchdown in the NFL. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird rule. I wouldn't be against it if they changed it, but I did pick Miami to win this game. So, listen, Dolphins I think they're on a bye this week, and Tua could come back. And a knock on wood, obviously, for Tua's health. But again, we talk about teams, sky's not falling. Miami's alive. I mean, they've got a puncher's chance now. They needed to get that win yesterday, and they got it. Commanders, Jaden Daniels keeps it going. Now, Jaden Daniels didn't have a crazy statistical output, 14-25, 238, a touchdown and a pick. But he did have 82 rushing yards, which led the team, and he did have a QBR of 75. As for the Browns, and I was talking to my man Grady Edwards about this. Shout out to Grady the other day, or yesterday rather. Deshaun Watson's awful. I mean, awful. The worst starting quarterback in the NFL, bar none. I thought it was him, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones playing pretty good football right now. So, and I'll get to the Giants a little bit later. Deshaun Watson yesterday, QBR 0-100. He got an 8.5 to be exact. Deshaun Watson got an 8, 0 to 100 QBR. Listen, the Browns are a disaster. I didn't think they'd be a very good football team, but coming into the year, I'm definitely being proven correct on that in large part because of Deshaun. Listen, I'm not hoping Kevin Stefanski is fired. I don't ever want to see a guy get fired. But certainly for the Browns, but as a Steelers fan, as a guy who revels in Cleveland misery, I'd love to see Kevin Stefanski get fired, get hired by somebody else, by an actually well-run franchise, and maybe take him to new heights. I'm telling you, Stefanski can coach, Deshaun cannot play, and the Browns cannot manage a football operation at all. So the Browns got knocked out. Well, I mean, by the way, they get blown in this game. So what? I mean, we have a little bit of picture. I think we have a live look on what happened.
They're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Just saying. What else we have? Caleb Williams, Bears, offensive masterclass. Caleb Williams yesterday, 20 of 29, 304 through the air, 2 touchdowns, passer rating of 126, QBR of 83, 0 to 100. So he was excellent. Panthers struggled. Bryce Young threw a nice pass late, so kudos to him there. But Caleb, in his last 6 quarters, has a darn near perfect passer rating, has well over 100. Listen, I said Caleb would be the runaway offensive rookie of the year. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I think he still can win that award. Him and Jaden Daniels are in the same conference. Listen, Caleb's been playing since the second half against the Rams last week. He's been playing exceptional football. He's coming in his own. And again, the thing that I keep saying about Caleb is because y'all know what I believe. I think he's a generational talent. He's as great as any prospect I've ever seen in my life at any position. I think Caleb's that special. Week 1, atrocious. Horrible. Won in spite of him. The Bears won in spite of him over the Titans. Needed some help from Will Levis to do that. Okay. Week 2, made some throws, but Week 3, okay, you start seeing that progression against the Colts. Last week against the Rams, plays pretty well. Yesterday is great throughout. Now it is Carolina. They have a bad defense, but horrible reminder for Bears fans. Caleb could have been your guy. And instead you made the modern day equivalent, what I think is going to be the modern day equivalent of the Herschel Walker trade between the Vikings and Cowboys back in the day. Kudos to Caleb, and he is slowly but surely. I don't lose faith. I don't just sell stock on guys after a week. I believe in you long term. Now, if you give me a reason not to over the course of multiple years, I'm probably going to sell stock on you. Derek Carr is a prime example of that. But love what I saw from Caleb Williams. Denver Broncos destroying the Raiders yesterday. I thought that'd be somewhat of a close game because it's a divisional AFC West matchup. Bo Nix is coming into his own. Okay, the Broncos won 3 straight. Bo Nix, couple touchdowns, pass rating of 117. Denver's defense, don't look now, this is a top 3 to 4 defense in the National Football League. They get a lot of movement up front, or not movement, but a lot of pressure up front in terms of defensive line. Pat Surtain, best corner in the game, bar none. It helps when Gardner Minshew throws him a pass like right into his breadbasket, the goal line. But once he took that to the house, I'm like, okay, Denver's going to win this game. Gardner Minshew, by the way, got benched for Aiden O'Connell, so the Raiders season, they're going to trade Devontae Adams maybe tomorrow. Who knows? Their season's going up in smoke. I said before the season, people thought I was crazy. I got a lot of pushback for this, but I thought Denver could be one of those, we'll be at Christmas and be like, dang, Denver's got a shot to make the playoffs. I didn't think they would. I had them as an 8-win team. And I wasn't crazy about Bo Nix coming to the draft, but once he went to Denver, once I knew he was getting the quarterback mastermind, Sean Payton, I'm like, he could work maybe. If he's with Sean Payton, again, it could be a pretty solid football team. Denver is still trying to, establish more and more of an identity running the football, but love what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. He's really accurate. He can move. And that tandem, him and Sean Payton, who's Denver got next week? Denver's got the Chargers. Okay, and that's the Chargers off a bye, and that game is in Denver. LA is a 3-point favorite. So y'all know I love the Chargers. I think they're an AFC title game team. That's my bold prediction from this year. But I think Denver's playing good football, and I like what I'm seeing from Bo Nix, and I love what I'm seeing from that Denver Broncos defense. Already talked Cardinals, Niners, Packers, Rams. Again, honestly, pay more attention to Niners, Cardinals, and to Seahawks and Giants. But from what I saw, I thought Jordan Love, he had a god-awful interception in the first half, but generally, he hit Tucker Kraft on a couple touchdowns, including a deep ball. Matt LaFleur keeps doing his thing. I saw that, or my sister told me, who's a big Packers fan, and she's happy today. She told me that Sean McVay has, I don't know if this is a true stat, but has never beaten Matt LaFleur. I was not aware of that. And by the way, LaFleur and McVay used to be on the same coaching staff back in the day. So, but the Rams are 1-4. By the way, that's another 1-4 team I'm not selling my stock on yet. The Rams were my kind of that was another one of my bold predictions. I picked the Rams to win the NFC West. I don't think that's out of the question. You're 2 games back in October. Sky's not falling. Seattle, get to them in a second. Seattle's kind of come back down to earth. The Niners aren't playing very well. Yeah, bye week the Rams do. Probably get Cooper Kupp for that game against the Raiders, which they should win. So that sky's not falling. I know I keep saying that, but it's not all said and done. I think the Rams played that well, and they had an opportunity to win at the end against a better team right now in Green Bay. I think the Rams will be fine in the long run. I'm still absolutely giving them a shot. Pick integrity to win the NFC West. And finally, Giants, Seahawks. Thank you, New York Giants. Brian Dable, Daniel Jones, no Malik Neighbors, and y'all came through for me for the second time on Upset of the Week. I picked the Giants to beat Cleveland in the Upset of the Week 2 weeks ago. And then yesterday, or Friday at least, I said Upset of the Week, Seahawks. Again, to me, this was prime upset territory, right? Giants with a great coach in Dable, extra time to prepare, tough loss to Dallas where they moved the football well, but there were some good things they showed on tape, extra time to prepare, where Seattle, we know Seattle, way up there, Pacific Northwest, has to fly all the way to Detroit on a Monday night game, has to fly all the way back to Seattle, doesn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, almost a week less time to prepare than what the Giants had. And listen, when Seattle punched that ball out the one in the first half and took it back 100 yards to the house, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. My Upset of the Week might have just went up in smoke there. Daniel Jones has been quietly playing pretty good football. I mean, Daniel Jones, 2 touchdowns. And I don't like this is Daniel Jones truth, or I never have been. But pass rating of 109. And by the way, this season, top 10 in passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Like, played pretty good football. Giants have established a solid running game, 175 yards rushing yesterday. Darius Slayton was good. I'm telling you, I'm not saying the Giants are a playoff team. I don't think they are. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, though, this season. But Dable's a great coach. Daniel Jones looks a little bit like the Daniel Jones he was 2 years ago, where pair him with a great coach, he could be a productive player. So, good win for the Giants, and thank y'all for the second time for coming up for me on Upset of the Week. And that, my friends, is our Week 5 recap. Speaking of Week 5, we got one more game tonight between the New Orleans Saints and the back-to-back Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Let's get the background music. Let's go ahead and predict this game before we get out of here. Let's go. Real quick, I did want to answer this comment. Let's turn the music on for a second, because listen, I get comments from people like this. I got to respond. Boots on the ground, Eric. Shout out to him. He says, crack him if you got him. How about them Cowboys? Boots on the ground, great guy. Works with the Cowboys. Cam fan guys. Anth, Adam, AJ, all of them do a great job. I was on their show actually yesterday on the pregame. Had a good time. Them and they had a guest on there, Chris. I might be on Chris's show pretty soon. Shout out to him. Enjoyed our back and forth and interactions. But Eric, shout out to you, my man. You do a great job. Cowboys Cam fan, subscribe to it. #1 Cowboys podcast out there. So shout out to him for sure. They do a great job. So don't normally interrupt predictions, but definitely want to give him a shout out because they do a great job. But I appreciate the love too in the comments, Eric. But as a Dak guy, I loved it. As a Steelers fan, broke my heart. It broke my heart. It really did. Love you too, Eric. I appreciate that. All right, back to predictions. Let's get the music back on. Okay, so New Orleans Saints, Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs at home at Arrowhead Stadium. No surprise here. They're the favorites, -5. So the Saints coming off of a 2-0 start, obviously, playing excellent football, blowing out the Panthers. Okay. Then you blow out Dallas on the road. Okay, that's something. Dallas had struggled at the start of the season to stop the run. Alvin Kamara and the Saints kind of exposed that, and Derek Carr kind of playing a little bit of the game manager role, kind of efficient football, but couldn't get anything going against Philly's defense. And then last week, I thought played pretty well. Taysom Hill was really good in that game against Atlanta. But Atlanta and Kirk Cousins doing what Atlanta and Kirk Cousins has done a lot this season. Coming up clutch. Kirk leading the game-winning drive at the end and getting the job done. As for Kansas City, again, the Saints obviously 2-0. Kansas City, along with Minnesota, only 2 undefeated teams in the league. Patrick Mahomes has played decent, nothing special. Mahomes coming in this week was top 5 in touchdown passes. We'll see if this is his first breakout game. Here's a crazy stat about Mahomes, y'all. We all agree he's the best quarterback in the game. He has not had, let's say real stat, Patrick Mahomes has not had a game with over 300 yards passing and 0 turnovers in almost 2 seasons. We have to go back to his MVP year back in 2022 for the last time that Holmes, again, had 300 yards passing through the air and 0 turnovers. Could this be the game tonight? The Saints defense has been pretty good. Was great against Carolina, great against Dallas, great against Philly, other than stopping the run. And Atlanta kind of got what they wanted at times that matchup. Kansas City is without Rashee Rice, who obviously suffered a brutal injury last week against the Chargers. Hollywood Brown has not hit the field for them. So this is going to be, and by the way, Pacheco is gone. Good news for Kansas City. They've shown they can run the ball with Carson Steele. So there you see that sort of that ability to be consistent to run the football at a high level. With him, Travis Kelce, expect a lot of targets from him. For him, you saw what he was able to do last week against the Chargers defense. I'm gonna roll with Kansas City. I haven't picked against the Kansas City Chiefs in some time, and that's worked out quite well for me. Give me the Chiefs minus the 5, 24-16. Certainly not an offensive explosion. I wouldn't be shocked at a defensive touchdown. To me, the matchup to watch: 2 of the Saints' interior offensive linemen out with injury. Does that not scream Chris Jones 2-sack game and a forced fumble, or what? Like this, Chris Jones probably get an interview by Lisa Salters or Laura Rutledge or whoever's doing the game for ESPN after the game. Mahomes would play efficient football. Would love to see, because Mahomes has thrown some bad picks this year. Want to see a clean game from Patrick. Don't make any bad decisions. You have the event. Your defense should have a big time performance against Derek Carr and the Saints. So give me the Kansas City Chiefs minus the 5, 24-16 over the New Orleans Saints. Before we get out of here, how did the Tigers-Guardians game end up? Tigers, there you go. Detroit 3-0 on a 3-run homer to beat the Kerry Carpenter hits a 3-run homer in the 9th inning to beat the Cleveland Guardians. Listen, my bold prediction in this divisional ALDS and NLDS series in the MLB postseason is that none of the division champions in Major League Baseball would make the ALCS or the NLCS. I picked the Mets, picked the Tigers. Those are 2, 1-1 series. I picked the Royals. They should have won game 1. They need to get this game 2 in New York tonight. Garrett Cole's not in the mound. They should be able to get the job done. And what was the other? Padres or the Dodgers, which I feel probably better about. I feel better about that than any of them. I think the Padres just match up with the Dodgers better, especially as it pertains to their location or to their rotation. Man, boots on the ground. Eric is spamming the comments right now, showing love. I appreciate you, Eric. Again, check out him. Check out the Cowboys CanFan podcast. They do a great job. Again, I was on their show last. It was only right. I had to be on the CanFan show last night. Cowboys Steelers. As a Dak guy, like it was a lot of mixed emotions last night. I'm not kidding. That game ended at 1 a.m. Eastern time, obviously here on the East Coast. And I honestly just kind of sat there for 15 minutes. And, the local news came on. I'm like, I don't know what I feel right now. Like on one hand, I am just pissed out of my mind that the Steelers found a way to lose that, getting 3 turnovers and not turn the ball over themselves. And then the other hand, I'm like, Dak's a bad man. Again, we should have had the picture on the show. I regret not putting it there. But toward the end of that, this should be a meme. Toward the end of that game-winning drive, this is when I knew, we're effed in this game. We're screwed over. I think it was Hunter Lipke, takes the ball inside the 5-yard line. It's like, oh boy, Dallas probably about to score here. And Dak turns to the baddest pass rusher in the game, TJ Watt, and is just chuckling, just laughing at him. TJ Watt's a monster. And Dak's just walking over there like, we got y'all. So it's a cool, collected. And one thing I love, let's see. Eric says, a shout out to the Good Times Barbershop in Brea, California. They let me mirror your stream on the TVs while I get my haircut. Technically add 8 more viewers to the count. Man, that's awesome. Eric, shout out to you, my man. Shout out to everybody in the barbershop. Nothing better the barbershop sports talk. So shout out to everybody in there. Appreciate y'all tuning into the show. Hope you guys will subscribe to Carving It Up. But Eric, man, listen, you didn't have to do that, and you did it. So I appreciate you. And again, I cannot say it enough. Subscribe to the Cowboys CanFan podcast. They really do some fantastic content over there. Man, my show's playing in a barbershop. I've officially made it. That is really cool. So appreciate that a lot, Eric. That honest to God, that really means a lot. All right. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Our next benchmark goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's the next thing that we're trying to meet. So if you have not subscribed, just takes a couple seconds. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you're part of the Carving It Up family. If you have subscribed, appreciate you so much. Everybody associated with the show means a lot to them as well. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. And you don't want to wake a sleeping cat. That is, trust me, I have one, and Neelan will give you the evil eye. If not worse. Just saying. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your podcasts. You can check us all out on the Grid Network. Also, check out my man Patrick Brown, writes some great articles for the Grid website. I have to imagine at the start of the week, he'll be coming out with some new ones pretty soon. Grid's website, the link to that is on our Instagram account. So just search the Grid Network. You can find our Instagram, check out Patrick's articles, and obviously check out our other incredible content creators. The 8 o'clock spot is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. 8 o'clock spot. 8 Eastern, of course, that naturally works. The best sports game show in town all week long. I'm the host / moderator. We'll have some great contestants on the show, talk about some football, may get some Major League Baseball postseason talk in there as well. The playoffs have been unbelievable thus far, and I expect that will continue. Shout out to the Detroit Tigers getting a very impressive win in Cleveland. I think y'all are going to take that series. I think that's pretty much all we got. Again, 8 o'clock spot tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in for that. And Carving It Up is back on Wednesday at 6 Eastern. Please stay tuned for all of our content we're going to be putting out on the YouTube channel and on our socials all throughout the week. All right. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us on a day-to-day basis in this country. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem, both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of nuanced solutions to solve it. And this being election year, if anybody running for office doesn't show any sort of sense of urgency to address this, vote them out or vote against them, because we got to address this as soon as possible to protect the beautiful people in this great nation. All right. I'm still fired. I could go another hour and a half, but for time purposes, I got to get out of here. I'll see you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace up. And shout out to the barbershop, man. Y'all the best. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.